All right. Hello, everyone. It is Monday, and hopefully your team won yesterday, unless you're a Rams fan, and they did not. Um, and I was hoping they didn't. But we're going to go over some game picks and we'll do some game breakdowns. So, as I had said in my video yesterday, I had Pittsburgh picked to beat Tennessee on the Thursday night game. That did happen. Rolling into the Sunday games, I had Kansas City picked to beat Miami. They jumped out to a big lead on them. They had two passing touchdowns, and then they had a fumble that they returned for a touchdown against Miami. Miami did make some efforts to get back into the game, but ultimately those efforts were spoiled in the end, and Kansas City's defense held on and won the game. This Kansas City offense is still experiencing some issues. Um, it's it's not explosive, and they do not have any go-to wide receivers in big situations. Travis Kelce is basically the go-to in big situations, and because of that, teams have learned are learning ways to take him away because he is getting older. He's not the same player he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He's still a very good player, no doubt, but he's not who he once was. I mean, age catches up with everybody, but their defense is keeping them in games. Their offense is doing enough. They're rolling into a bye week right now. I don't know. I don't know the rules on. Um, so like for I mean, Kansas City obviously played in Germany yesterday, and now they're on their bye week. So I don't know if there are rules that say the players have to return to the states with the team, or if the team is allowed to let them just, okay, it's a road game. We're in our bye week. Y'all can do whatever, and let them make plans to either stay. Because I know Travis Kelce had said on New Heights that he was thinking about staying in Germany for a few days because they were talking about possibly doing the podcast there. Um, so I don't know if some of the players are staying, if they're coming home, what they're doing, but um, they've really got to figure something out in this bye week with the offense to get some of these other receivers more involved to take a bigger role. The coaching staff's got to figure something out. Defensively, they're playing great. Their defense is keeping them in games, but sooner or later they're going to run into a team that their defense can only do so much against. I mean, that's kind of the case. That's kind of been the case throughout history. There's only been a few defenses in history that have been able to just be extremely dominant no matter who they were playing. And I mean, you have the 85 Bears, obviously, didn't matter who they played, they were beating them. They lost one game that year, I believe, to Miami. And another one would be I believe it was the 2000 Ravens, 2001 Ravens. One of those years, I think it was 2000s. Uh, yeah, I believe it was 2000 Ravens. I think that team won the Super Bowl, but they were an extremely dominant defense. It might have been '02. I don't know. It was sometime in the early 2000s. Ravens had a very, very dominant defense. Uh, so there is that team, and then the first year that the Legion of Boom really got on the map, which was 2013. They were a defense that it really didn't matter what you did. They had an answer for you. They were gonna stop you. And really, into the second year, they had a very dominant defense. The second year, but they started to get exposed. They weren't as good, and in that second year, they lost a few games. The defense really didn't play as good, and then they made the Super Bowl, and obviously gave up a double-digit lead to Tom Brady in the fourth quarter. But Kansas City's defense is not on the level of those teams. Like Kansas City's defense, it's holding teams to a low amount of points. It's doing very good, but it's going to run eventually. It's going to run into Cincinnati or Baltimore, and these offenses are very stout, and both of those teams have good defenses as well. And they're going to, with the way Kansas City offense has been playing, they will slow them down enough that their offense can do enough against Kansas City's defense. So Kansas City really needs this bye week to figure something out, and they have a difficult test coming out of the bye week playing Philadelphia. So that Kansas City, they should be happy because they are one of the top seeds, if not the top seed in the AFC right now. But they have issues that they got to figure out, and they have time, but they've got to figure them out. Next, we had the Rams playing Green Bay. This is a game I picked Green Bay to win. Reports were Stafford may or may not play. He did not play, and the Rams only accumulated 3 points all game, and Green Bay ended up scoring 20. We got an early touchdown to Jones in the second quarter, so they finally ended their streak of 3 or less points in the first half, but they still did not look good in the first half. I was very, very upset with the way the offense looked in the first half. Third quarter, they kicked a field goal. Fourth quarter, kicked a field goal. And then finally, Jordan Love threw a pass to Luke Musgrave late in the game to essentially put it completely out of reach for the Rams. But looking at the box score for the game, Love was efficient, 20 of 26, so his completion percentage was much higher than the 50 to 55, 56% that it had been for the majority of the season. So I am pleased with that. And but 228 yards on 26 attempts, that's close to 10 yards, a little more than 10, or no, that's about 9 yards an attempt or so. Hang on, I can tell you, 8.8 yards per attempt. So that's pretty good. It shows he was trying to push the ball down the field. Uh, he didn't throw an interception. He did have the one touchdown. His rating was much better, so he played pretty good. But the running game struggled to get going. Um, Aaron Jones finally got a decent amount of carries. He got going a little bit, but he was only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. 20 carries for 73 yards. Dillon had 9 carries for 40. He was much better, but the running offense really was good yesterday. The passing offense is still a major concern. Even though Love was efficient and played fairly well, these numbers by these receivers are rough. They're hard to look at. So you have your rookie tight end Luke Musgrave, who had 3 catches for 51 yards. Dontavion Wicks, 4 catches for 49 yards. Christian Watson, 1 for 37. Dobbs, 3 for 36. Aaron Jones, 4 for 26. Jaden Reed, 3 for 19. Joshua DeGuara, 1 for 7. AJ Dillon, 1 for 3. And Malik Heath, 0 catches. Your most targeted receiver is Aaron Jones with 6. Luke Musgrave with 4. Dontavion Wicks with 4. Christian Watson only had 2, which he's the most explosive receiver you have, and you only give him 2 targets. For me, that's an issue. Dobbs, 3 targets. So they're still. I'm glad they took a different approach to the game. The defense played pretty well yesterday. I mean, granted, it was a backup quarterback playing. He only threw for 130 yards, did throw an interception, and and they only accumulated 68 yards on the ground. That was by far the best Green Bay has really done against the run all year. But going forward, Green Bay has difficult games. They're 3-5. By no means is the season turned around at this point. We play the Steelers, who have a really good defense this week. So that could be disastrous, even though their offense is not great. Follow that up with the Chargers, who pretty solid team. Follow that up with the Lions on Thanksgiving. Probably going to lose that one. Chiefs the next week. Probably lose that. The Giants, we probably win. Tampa Bay could go either way. Panthers would probably win. And Vikings and Bears to end the season. Who knows how that Vikings game will go? Bears game, who knows how that game will go? So Green Bay's looking at potentially a 6-win season here, 6-11, 7-10. Not a good season, but with some some better play calling on both sides of the ball. Obviously, some better adjustments on defense. They can win maybe 8 games, but their playoff hopes are pretty much done in the NFC with the way the things are going. Um, so next we had Atlanta and Minnesota, and Josh Dobbs came in with because he was traded to Minnesota at the trade deadline. No practice reps all week. Didn't even know most of the players' names. He was going into the game, and before he did so, he had to get together with the offensive line on the sideline, and they had to practice his cadence a few times on the sideline before he went into the game because no one knew it. He didn't even know, like I said, he didn't even know all the players' names. So he come in, played extremely well, led them to a comeback win, and they beat Atlanta. Meanwhile, his old team, the Arizona Cardinals, played Cleveland. Cleveland hung a goose egg on them, beat them 27-0. Deshaun Watson, I believe, played, decided he was good to go. Kind of a spur of the moment, last minute thing that we found out. I called for Washington to upset New England, and that for sure did happen. I was very happy with that. New Orleans beat Chicago, although Chicago did give them some trouble, made it close. Baltimore thoroughly manhandled Seattle. Seattle turned the ball over a few times and just couldn't do anything with Baltimore's offense. I called for Tampa Bay to upset Houston, and this game was a very good game. Tampa Bay, I mean, they got up a little bit. Houston lost their kicker. Houston came back. C.J. Stroud played really well, and with less than a minute, Tampa went down, scored a touchdown. I believe with like 46 seconds on the clock. Took a 4-point lead, and gave the ball back to Houston, and within a few plays, Houston was in scoring position and scored a touchdown. CJ Stroud basically locked up Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, with that performance yesterday. He threw a rookie record 470 yards. He threw 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I think he joined a list of like 5 players that have thrown for 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And it was like Peyton Manning, Jared Goff. I forget all the names, but I mean it's a very exclusive list. So to be on that list as a rookie is quite the achievement. Next, I had Indianapolis beating Carolina. That did happen. I called for the Raiders to beat the Giants under um, newly appointed interim head coach Antonio Pierce, who was a member of the '07 Giants who beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and they played extremely well. Granted, Daniel Jones did have a non-contact knee injury towards ACL. He is done for the year. So the Giants season is over. It was pretty much already over, but it is officially over now. And that leads us to the 3:30 game, the big game of the day, Dallas on the road in Philly. This game, both teams had moments of playing great, and both teams had moments of playing terrible. Neither team put together a complete game. And I say that because third quarter, Dallas Dallas was non-existent in the third quarter. Philly come out, or hang on. So early on, Philly went down, scored a touchdown, made it 7-0. Dallas come back, scored, tied it, and then scored to take the lead. Went up 14-7 on Philly. Philly again tied it, made it 14-14, and then Dallas kicked a field goal before halftime. So first half pretty even. Both teams got a couple stops. Both teams got some touchdowns. And Philly really changed up how they did the brotherly shove. I thought it was a very good added wrinkle to it. They lined up for on fourth and short, and they let the play clock tick down. They did some hard counts to try to get the defense to jump to get a cheap first down, and cheap with a P, not a T, not a cheat. But as time ran down, and the announcers kind of reverberated it, or said it, that as a defense, you got to be thinking, okay, they're not really going for it. They're letting the time run down. They're call timeout or take it the delay a game and punt. And as time ran down, you kind of catch the defense off guard, and then they snapped it and were successful. So that's 2 weeks in a row they've shown an added wrinkle to the brotherly shove. Obviously, last week with the fake brotherly shove with the handoff to the running back. So they are getting creative with it. I like it. It's it just shows that they know they're good at that play, and they're going to take advantage of it and use it in every possible way. Um, anyway, coming out of half, Philly marched down the field easily for a touchdown to take a 21-17 lead. Dallas then got the ball, didn't do anything, gave it back to Philly. They again went the length of the field, scored a touchdown to make it 28-17, 11-point lead. And I'd said I needed to see Dallas play well from behind and win the game. And lo and behold, here they are down 2 scores starting the fourth quarter, and it's like, okay, this is the situation I needed to see them in. And what did they do? They go down and they go for it on fourth down, which I've already spoke on in previous videos how teams are going for it entirely too much on fourth downs. They're not taking points in the red zone. They're going for it, and I get the analytics, say to go for it, but points matter. And so Dallas threw a pass to the goal line to, I believe, a rookie tight end, and his knee was down, and the ball was outside the goal line, and it ended up. They called it a touchdown on the field. Upon review, it was overturned, so they come away with nothing. And had they kicked the field goal there, I get it. It would have been a one-score game. It would have been a 28-20 game at that point. I get it. But those 3 points could have been crucial later in the game, and I'll get to that. So, anyway, Dallas came away with nothing. Philly got the ball, punted it. Dallas went down and then scored a touchdown, went for two to try to make it a field goal game, and Dak scrambles, steps out of bounds before getting the ball across the goal line, so the 2-point attempt is unsuccessful. So, just I don't really like speculating and talking about hypothetical situations, but had Dallas kicked that field goal on the first drive instead of going for the touchdown, they'd have been down 8 points. If they could have stopped Philly's offense, went down and scored that second touchdown that they did get, you can go for two to tie, and if you miss it, you're down by two. It's 26-20 at that point. Well, Dallas then again stopped Philly's offense, and then they went down the field, and they are in field goal range, and they ended up getting sacked a couple times, getting out of field goal range, but they were in long field goal range distance. Could have kicked it, and had they have done that, that could have gave them a 1-point lead. Or had they been able to milk the clock longer, make Philly use their timeouts as early on, you could have taken that lead and forced Philly to try to get down the field and score when your defense had held Philly to, they ended up holding Philly to 14 yards in the fourth quarter. So losing the game by 5 when you could have kicked a field goal instead of going for a touchdown, and then you were in field goal range twice in the final 2 minutes of the game. And I mean, that's 6 points, 9 points really, and you lost by 5. So points matter. It was terrible game management in crucial situations by Mike McCarthy. And so anyway, Dallas did get a touchdown, failed the 2-point conversion, give the ball back to Philly. They try to run 3 plays to milk the clock. They don't get a first down, which would have ended the game. They fumble the ball and almost gave it to Dallas in the red zone. Luckily, they recovered, punted it deep, gave the ball to Dallas on their 14-yard line. So Dallas is on their 14 with 46 seconds. Well, they end up getting a pass interference call on, I believe, Bradbury, and that moves them close to midfield. And then the next play, they get a short completion, like 8-9 yards to Ferguson, and they get a roughing passer call, moves them even closer, and then they get a pass to CeeDee Lamb. They're on the 11-yard line. First and 10 on the 11, and Philly jumps, move the ball halfway to the half the distance of the goal. It's first and goal on the 6. Dallas has first and goal on the 6, or it might have been first and 5. I mean, either way, it's first down on the 6-yard line. You've got plenty of time to throw 3 or 4 passes into the end zone, and what does Dallas do? They take a sack. Then what do? They false start. And then what do? They have 2 plays from. I mean, they eventually go from snapping the ball on the 6-yard line to snapping it on almost the 30 or right around the 30. Throw a deep pass. It ends up really being out of reach for. I'm not sure who it was, but uh, throw a pass out of the end zone, and then it's last ditch effort. Philly plays a prevent defense, and they throw it to Lamb at like the 5. He's looking for somebody to shovel it to do like a lateral and hopefully get the touchdown. And he ends up getting tackled, fumbles ball. Philly recovers it, wins the game. But that last drive, Philly self-destructed. They had 2 injuries to their 2 starting corners. They had 2 major penalties: the pass interference and the roughing the passer. And then they jumped offside, so that's really 3 penalties. I mean, they basically handed Dallas the win, and Dallas found a way to lose. Dallas found a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. I mean, it was typical Dallas. Uh, they played good being down, which I needed to see, but they did not win. And Dak played extremely well. He typically does play really well against Philly, so that's not really that surprising. But he doesn't play that well consistently, and he doesn't play that well against other teams often. So do I think that they're really contenders based off last night? I'm a little more inclined to say so, but at the same time, I still can't fully say because they didn't win. They were in a, I mean, you put Kansas City first and goal in the 6, and they need a touchdown to win. What do you think Kansas City does? I think they get the touchdown. Cincinnati gets that touchdown. Baltimore gets that touchdown. San Francisco and Philly get that touchdown. I mean, in all likelihood, Buffalo, Miami, and Philadelphia, I mean, not Philadelphia, Detroit all get that touchdown. And those are all playoff teams and all the teams that have Super Bowl aspirations. And Dallas did the opposite. So I still have concerns with Dallas. A little bit less after yesterday, but I still have concerns. And Philly's going into a bye week. They come out of the bye week with a rough 5-game stretch. They play Kansas City, I believe. I don't know the exact order, but I believe it's Kansas City, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, or maybe it's Buffalo, Dallas, Seattle. But their next 5 games are between Kansas City, San Francisco, Buffalo, Dallas, and Seattle. And then they wrap up the season with against the Giants, the Cardinals, and then the Giants again. So if Philly can win 3 of their next 5 games, that'll put them at 12-3, and with 3 extreme 11-3, not 12-3, 11-3, with 3 very winnable games between the Giants twice and the Cardinals, giving them a great chance at the 1 seed, and if at worst the 2 seed, and also giving them possibly the opportunity to rest players last week of the season, having the first round bye potentially, because San Francisco has 3 losses, Dallas has 3 losses, and everybody else in the conference has 4 or more. Or I think Seattle has 3, but they're going to play San Francisco, they're going to play Seattle, and if it comes down to tied records, say they beat Seattle but lose to San Francisco, and they all end up with uh, I mean, there's a lot of playoff scenarios and tiebreaker scenarios, but Philly's one loss right now is to an AFC opponent. So one of the first tiebreakers is going to be conference record. So if they only lose 2 in conference games, that bodes extremely well for them because Seattle has lost. I know one of their losses is to an AFC team. I don't know if more than that is. And the 49ers, they have one conference loss, and that is to um, the Vikings. Their other two were Cleveland and Cincinnati. So your conference record's going to matter, and it's really a crucial 5-game stretch for Philly. Now, Dallas, on the other hand, they're in a similar situation. They play 3 winnable games. They play the Giants, the Panthers, and then the Commanders, and then they have a rough 5-game stretch where they will play Philly, Buffalo, Seattle, Miami, and Detroit. 5 difficult games, and then they finish the season with the game against the Commanders again. But it's it the game yesterday was huge for whoever won it, and Philly ended up winning. It's huge for them. It gives them the inside track to the 1 seed, gives them the inside track to the division and the 2 seed at the worst. So, and it basically puts Dallas squarely in the wild card conversation. And with their with all 3 of their losses being to NFC teams, San Francisco, Arizona, and now Philly, they don't have the tiebreakers with other teams. If there's a 3-way tie, it's going to be a conference record. If it's a head-to-head, if they're head-to-head tied with San Fran, San Fran has the tiebreaker. If they lose to Seattle, Seattle will have the head-to-head. So Dallas is in a position to where they could be ending up with the 5 or the 6 seed. More than likely, the 5 seed would go on the road to the NFC South team, which will most likely be uh, probably New Orleans. And after that, they're on the road to either Philly, Detroit, or San Francisco, which is not good for them. So a lot to watch for going forward with them. As for the late game, we had Cincinnati hosting Buffalo. I had Cincinnati picked to win. Both teams went down the field, scored touchdowns right off the bat. The quarterbacks were 12 of 13 or 13 of 14 on the opening drives. Very efficient. Buffalo turned around and allowed Cincinnati to score again, making it 14-7. And then Buffalo kind of got very stagnant, and Cincinnati was able to hold on, score again later in the game, and ultimately I think they won 24-10. Josh Allen did turn the ball over. I know he threw a pick. I think they fumbled it and lost it as well. I don't think the fumble was on Josh Allen, but uh, Buffalo now falls to 5-4. Cincinnati now moves to 5-3 after a slow start. Joe Burrow looking good, and ultimately for Buffalo, this as it pertains to the playoffs, they are now sitting in the 9 seed at 5-4. Jets ahead of them at 4-3, better win percentage and one, and they do have the head-to-head on them. And then Cincinnati is in the 7th spot right now, with also a head-to-head. Buffalo has the most difficult schedule down the stretch because they still have to play, I believe, Kansas City. They play Dallas. They play Philly. They're going to play Miami again. So they have a difficult road to get to the playoffs. Now, obviously, the Jets could easily fall out of playoff contention. Pittsburgh sitting at 5-3, struggles on offense. They could easily fall out. So Buffalo could work their way into that 7 seed and get in, but they've got their work cut out for them to do so. And it's not going to be an easy road because, like I said, they have difficult schedule. So hopefully they can make a run at it, but we'll have to see. Uh, I'll try to make a video tomorrow. We'll go over the Monday night game between the Jets and the Chargers. I have the Jets picked to win in an upset. And then since we're kind of at that mid-season mark, kind of reevaluate award winners, division winners, playoff race, all that, kind of like we did at the quarter mark. So we may do that again at the halfway mark. But We'll go ahead and wrap this up, call it a video. Currently, I'm sitting at 11-2 on my picks for the week. Very solid week on the picks. So at worst, I will be 11-3 if the Jets lose tonight, or it could be 12-2 if the Jets win, and that would really propel my picks back in the right direction and get me going where I need it to be. So again, with all that being said, we're gonna wrap this video up, and I'll catch y'all next time.